Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Pensions Subcommittee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through the Council's website. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Write and speak in the Teams chat function. When you want to contribute, if you are in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the Teams meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting. This is so we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking their time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. Members may notice that when calling members to speak, I will refer them formally and using their title, e.g. Councillor Jones, so that it's clear that who are councillors and who, by the process of elimination, are officers. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Similar to the process now followed at full council when considering motions, amendments which are substantive in nature, I will call a recess when necessary so that I may seek governance advice on competency. This is good practice in governance terms and will also provide for governance to be able to collate and circulate the terms of said motions, amendments to members in order that, excuse me, apologies. So this is good practice in governance terms and will also provide for governance to be able to collate and circulate terms of said motions, amendments to members in order that they have the opportunity to properly review it. I hope this process makes matters more effective and I seek members' support in implementing this. We have several important reports to consider today and I anticipate we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. So go to agenda item 1, which is the Sidering apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Claire.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got 5 pension sub-members present this morning. Yourself and Councillor Dorward here in the chamber. The 3 members on Teams being Councillors Dryborough, Malcolm Johnson and Thompson. We've been advised of 2 apologies, being Councillors Hislop and McFarlane, and 1 currently not present, being Councillor Ingalls. There's 3 vacancies remaining on the subcommittee. We also have 4 board members in attendance this morning, being Councillor Beretti, Councillor Maureen Johnson on Teams, David Stainthorpe and Councillor Walters on Teams. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to agenda item 2, which is declaration of interest. Anyone got any declarations or statement of connections to make? Don't see anyone coming in. Move on to agenda item 3. The minutes of the previous meeting, 24th of June 2025. Are we happy to, I think, is it approve or note? It's for approval. So are members happy to approve? Yeah, nods in the room. Silence online. Okay, with that, we now move on to agenda item 4. This is the report by external audit on the 2024-25 audit of Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund. This report provides members with the audit report from Audit Scotland on the 24-25 annual report and accounts. This report highlights that an unmodified opinion has been issued and the accounts have been prepared in accordance with law and relevant accounting practices, and provide a true and fair view of the fund's position at the 31st of March 2025. The final audited version of the accounts and letter of representation are appended to the report for members to approve before handing over to Peter Lindsay and Amy MacDonald from Audit Scotland. I would like to put on record the appreciation to Audit Scotland for their work, and also to the officers from both the administration and investment teams who supported this year's audit and prepared the accounts which are before members today. I will now hand over to Peter and Amy to talk members through their audit report. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Appendix 1 of Agenda Item 4 is effectively our covering paper to our 24-25 Annual Audit Report, which is attached to Appendix 2 of Item 4. Paragraph 1 of Appendix 1 on page 17 highlights that the audit of the pension fund's accounts is substantially complete, and we've issued an unmodified audit opinions in the Independent Auditor's Report for inclusion in the pension fund accounts, and these will be signed by all relevant parties after today's meeting. Paragraph 6 highlights that there are no uncorrected misstatements to report in the annual accounts. And by presenting this covering paper, paragraph 7 sets out the areas we seek confirmation from those charged with governance, being the Pension Subcommittee. Paragraphs 9 and 10 highlight that we seek written representations from the Chief Financial Officer on aspects of the accounts, and this is attached to Appendix 1. And we have now received all the outstanding information detailed in paragraph 11, and with no exceptions to report in relation to this outstanding information. So moving on to Appendix 2 of Item 4, our annual audit report sets out the key messages from our report on pages 31 and 32. And as I previously highlighted, point 1 shows our audit opinions are unqualified, unmodified. We've also concluded on wider scope audit areas, and we've concluded that the fund has effective financial management arrangements, including comprehensive reporting on investment performance. Key message 5 highlights that we have no concerns regarding the financial sustainability of the fund, and we have also concluded that the fund has adequate arrangements in place to support good governance and conducts its business in an open and transparent manner. We've noted that overall fund investment performance in the year was ahead of the benchmark return. In terms of the detail within our annual audit report, I wanted to highlight paragraph 23 on page 38, which shows that there are no significant findings or key audit matters to report in relation to our audit of this year's annual audit accounts. We have made 2 recommendations for 2024-25, and these are detailed on pages 66 and 67 in relation to business continuity and cyber security plans and key performance indicator reporting. We are satisfied with the agreed management actions. We would also like to thank the fund officers for their support and assistance throughout the year. Amy and I are happy to take any questions or comments members may have on what we feel is a positive annual audit report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. So I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Dorward.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and thank you for the report. It's a very good report card, as far as I can see. You've highlighted, that there are no major concerns. So I'll focus on one of the recommendations. Try and move this microphone across my desk a little bit and move some of my equipment out of the way. Basically, it's the recommendation that I've got on page 57 of the report. I think you mentioned you did, it's 29 of the report, but it's 57 of my report. Recommendation 1, the fund should develop its own business continuity plan and cybersecurity plan in line with the Pension Regulator General Code of Practice, which is all well and good. Probably a question for the staff here in terms of doing that, in terms of resourcing. Is that a viable option for next year in terms of resourcing and funding for staff, given that we have some staffing issues that have been addressed, but that might require more additional staffing? Don't know. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dorward. Ross, do you want to come in on that particular point?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your question. It's also going to be brought up in the further on in the agenda when we discuss the action plan to do with the Code of Practice. It's one of the actions that was highlighted as part of that plan. Work will be ongoing this year. Myself and Isla's team will be pulling those plans together as part of this audit recommendation and the action plan for the Code of Practice as well.
Thank you. Do you want to come back in?
Basically, it's doable then, Ross, is that what you're saying? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's quite reassuring. Anyone else? David Stainthorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Item 60 on page 52 relates to the governance arrangements regarding the Pension Subcommittee and Pension Board. Can I just ask you if the governance arrangements you refer to are those identified on pages 92, 93 and 94 of the financial statement?
Thank you. Peter?
Which is Appendix 3, I think.
Yes, can confirm that's correct.
Apologies. Could I just ask the subcommittee to note that the governance statement on pensions, on pages 92, 93 and 94 is not the same as the one that was agreed by the subcommittee on the 5th of December last year.
I'll bring Karen in at the moment, David, and see if we can get a response to that.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Just to clarify, as part of the preparation of the accounts, we updated the governance compliance statement to align with the policy statement that the committee agreed in December. And when the refreshed statement is brought before the committee in December, it will be this version, the most up-to-date published version will be appended to the governance policy statement. So just to confirm, that's the sort of process that we've gone through.
Thanks, Karen. Is that okay, David?
No, it isn't, but we'll note it for the time being. Thank you.
Okay, so I see Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at page 34 of the Appendix Exhibit 10, and it's the Administration Performance Indicators, and it's on the annual member administration costs, which the target's for under £25. This looks to be increasing over the last few years. I'm just wondering if there's while it may not be a significant marker in the audit, is that something that we can maybe get a little bit of information on, because it's sort of, £7.41 above the target. Is that something we would need to look at in terms of setting realistic expectations? Thank you.
So thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. Peter?
I think this probably was the one for officers as opposed to ourselves. We're just replicating the figures that's set out in the accounts.
Yeah, thanks. I've got Stuart Clanahan online. Stuart, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, and through you. Yep, the target of £25. I think that's something that we do need to have a look at. That's been the standard for quite some time. I think it probably does need to be refreshed in terms of current market conditions and costs of systems, etc. What we can see certainly over the last year, and it's within my report in the next in the next item on the agenda, is that we've had a number of significant system cost increases to cope with some of the legislative demands, which has resulted in increased cost. But I think the £25 threshold probably needs a kind of review, and happy to look at that between now and next year's annual report. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. Has that been helpful, Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thank you. I had another question. It might come up later in the agenda, but it was actually to do with, I think it's on page 32 of the appendix, just around the performance of the fund. And it sort of mentions, I think it's under point 91 or top of point 92 about the 5 of 9 investment portfolios managed to perform ahead of benchmark. But it does set out there in section 92 about the investment managers having distinct mandates, and this is the bit we'll probably come on to later, but which is the set of instructions laying out how pools of assets should be invested. I appreciate this may not be one for the audit team because, in a sense, they're describing just what's there and in place and assessing those control arrangements, if you like. But those mandates, these are things that we set in terms of if we want to say this is the type of investments we would expect that fund manager to perform against. So can I maybe just get a little response from the relevant officer just to say how much influence we have on setting that mandate? Thank you.
Thanks. Looks like I'll bring Ian Campbell in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So what we do when we make an investment into one of these funds, these are all pooled funds, so lots of other investors are in there. So when the investment manager launches the fund, they will set out to the market, this is the mandate, this is our benchmark, this is our target to either perform in line with the benchmark or outperform it. And then it's up to us when we invest in it to say, is that what we want from it? So we couldn't go to a manager and say that benchmark's wrong because that would affect all the other investors as well. So yeah, at the time of investment, we decide whether we think that's correct or not. And I should also just make an additional comment. It says 5 of the 9 investment portfolios performed above benchmark, so some didn't, so roughly half and half. That's kind of the cost of diversification. We invest in lots of different types of strategies at any one time. Some will perform well, some will underperform through some market conditions. That's what we want, is kind of the cost of not just putting it all on black. So again, I think that's really what we would want to be seeing there. If everything was outperforming, we'd be worried that everything was too linked and next year everything might underperform. But yeah, the influence over the mandates is kind of at selection. We pick the one we think is right for us.
Thanks, Ian. Has that been helpful, Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, no, I think that helps clarify, and the additional information about the 5 above and 5 below benchmark was helpful as well. So thanks for now, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I've got Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And as I agree with Councillor Dorwood, it is a good report coming back, good audit report coming back. But I've just got one question on page 70, number 5, administration policies, and it says in the work in progress, all the rest of them have been complete or are nearly complete. That fund officers aim to present these policies to the pension subcommittee by March 2026. I just want to confirm that that is the case, that it will be here by March 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Dryborough. I'll bring Stuart Clanahan back in. Stuart.
Thank you. Thanks through you, Chair. Yes, we're on target. We'll ensure that those are brought back. That's the current status from the team. So look forward to bringing those back before or around March. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beretti.
Thank you, Chair. Pages 52 and 53, point 62. Keywords here is the operating effectiveness of key controls. Now, looking at the item 62 and 63, that clearly was brought forward at previous audit reports, and something was supposed to have initiated, but doesn't seem to have quite started because of some digital technical issues, possibly. Now, bearing in mind that, and bearing in mind also that on page 44 and item 36, you've got that monitoring report should be prepared and presented to members throughout the year. How is that proceeding? Is it proceeding? What are the stops that are stopping it from proceeding?
Thank you, Councillor Beretti. Who's going to take this one? I'll bring Amy in initially, and then
Thanks, Chair.
I'll bring in Karen.
So, yeah, so you can see from those paragraphs there that there was a slight delay in the receipt of some of those controls report review. We did get the finalised versions just before we managed to complete the audit, and we also do a number of checks ourselves, so we don't have any actual issues or significant concerns as to the information that was within those reports. And we've agreed with officers that these will be implemented for next year, so we don't have any concerns in relation to those. In terms of the budget, obviously 25-26 was the first budget that was made for the Pension Subcommittee, and so you can see that the first budget monitoring report has come today to the subcommittee today, so we're happy with those processes in place.
Thank you. Do you want to come in, Karen?
No, thank you, Chair. And just Councillor Barretti, just to kind of reassure you on the internal controls report, obviously it was an issue that was, you'll recall, was picked up in last year's audit report, where we've got we had all the reports, but we weren't, I suppose, documenting our review of those. So we have implemented that for this year, and I think sort of the point that Amy and Peter have brought out in their report is maybe around the time taken, that potentially, like the time the assurances are sought from the fund managers, and when the review was undertaken, we might need to sort of have a bridging position just to make sure that nothing's changed if there's any sort of time delay between the information being received and our review. So we'll absolutely take that on board and continue to refine the process, but I absolutely assure you that the review was undertaken.
Thank you, Karen. David Stainsop.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the same section, it says there were no formal documentation of the process, but it also says significant findings were noted. Do we know what those significant findings were?
So, Amy?
Sorry, can I just confirm which paragraph this is?
Which paragraph, David, are you referring to? Microphone, please.
Sorry, section 32, and it's on page 53.
This is in relation to last year, so this is just an update from last year. This doesn't impact this year. This year there was no significant findings in any of the controls reports that required reflection from officers or from us.
Thank you. Don't see anyone else hoping to come in. So with that, we'll just move to the recommendations. 2.1, to receive the auditor's report, which we have done. 2.2 is to approve the letter of representation to be certified by the Chief Officer and appended to the audit report as detailed in Appendix 1. 2.3 is approve the audited accounts, which will be certified by the Chief Financial Officer and Audit Scotland after this meeting as detailed in Appendix 3. And 2.4, note that the certified accounts will be made available to all members by the 31st of October 2025, when they will be available on the Council's website. We're happy to note those. Archie, Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. To add one further account, I think one recommendation, I think, and that's just to say that, well done, our thanks to the officers and the audit team for putting together this report.
Thank you. I'm sure that's will be welcome and appreciated. So thank you, Peter, and thank you, Amy, for your reports. We now move on to agenda item 5. This is the Local Government Pension Scheme Administration Annual Update. This report provides an update on the activity and performance of the Pensions Administration Team for the financial year 2024-25. This is an annual report received by the subcommittee, and Stuart Clanahan and Eilidh Herrick are available to take any questions that members may have. I'll first of all go to you, Stuart. Is there anything to add to the report?
Thanks, Chair. Just to say that my colleague Gemma McQuinney from the pensions team is joining me today. Unfortunately, Eilidh couldn't. But nothing further to add to the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to the floor. I've got Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's just on 4.3, paragraph 4.3, and it's talking about the 43 possible instances where pension continue to be paid. I'd imagine this would there'd always be a number of this happening at any given time, just given the nature of things. But is this the number you would expect, or is it sort of above or below the sort of normal anticipated figures for this type of thing to happen?
Thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, looking at our past experience, this is kind of around the norm, if I can put it that way, but it does fluctuate, as you can imagine, on a year-by-year basis. It's a very, very small amount, and it's consistently a very small amount as well. But we do have a long-standing relationship with the initiative. It's been working well for us for many, many years, and it is, in effect, a mortality screening process that does assist not only ourselves but other administering authorities up and down the country. So yeah, the numbers are not high, they're not surprising either, but they are around the norm, and it is a very good double check that we use, and we certainly value it in terms of data quality. Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Two questions, if I may, Chair. 6.3, page 167 is the first one. It's just a minor point. It's talking about annual benefit statements and the McLeod decision. And basically saying that some members haven't had that, the calculation in their 2025 ABS. It's only 0.85%, which is not a high number, which is fair enough. Will that be remedied, Stuart? And the second question is, it's not that complex, don't worry. 7.4, support from colleagues in the Council's procurement team work is underway for the procurement of a pensions administration software system, which is great. Just an assurance that that's on target. And if it's not, what are the mitigations for that? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Dorward. Stuart.
Thank you. The answer to both questions is affirmative, yes. All the 87 have all been done. We've just had to do those manually. And the second part, we're very much on target, if not slightly in front of target. So, yeah, good assurance there. Thank you.
Councillor Dorward.
Thanks for that assurance. I did ask, do you have mitigations in place should anything happen in terms of the new system? Thank you.
Stuart.
Yeah, we do. We certainly had a very long-standing relationship with our existing provider. It is the biggest and the best in the UK. We don't anticipate any problems. However, the procurement action plan does include mitigations around any delay in the process. However, so far, there are no delays in the process. They are technically the only provider in Scotland that provides the compliance that we need to ensure that we are fully compliant as a council. And through that procurement process, the mitigations are there, very low risk in terms of actual implementation and initiation with the existing provider.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Don't see anyone wishing to come in, so we'll go to the recommendations, which is 2.1 to update the information regarding the National Fraud Initiative as detailed in paragraph 4.1. 2.2, the annual report on local government pension scheme activity for financial year 2024-25 in accordance with Regulation 57 of the Local Government Pension Scheme, Scotland, Regulations 2018, and this is in the appendix, so happy to note those. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6. This is the Pension Fund Investment and Accounting Update. This report was previously the Emerging Issues Report. However, As this committee now receives an administration update on a quarterly basis, this report has been changed to focus on the investment and accounting aspects for the fund. The report provides an investment update and Q1 budget monitoring report following the approval of the 2025-26 budget at the May meeting. Ross Fraser and Karen Donaldson are here to assist with any questions or comments. So, anything to add before opening up the floor? No? Okay, so I've got Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, welcome this report, especially now, and I think I was keen to see this brought in front of the Pension Subcommittee so we could start to look at this. It's a bit, I suppose that as a lay person, ultimately, a lot of the concern around this is about the type of lobbying that elected members get, and you know, over the years this has been around, for example, fossil fuels or armaments or whatever it might be. But certainly currently, there is something about how we review our ethical investment position, and I know that's it's been 3 years on, as the report says. But you know, the reason why I was asking about mandates earlier was about, you know, as a buyer's market, effectively, how much scope could we have as elected members if we wanted to have an ethical investment strategy? That I'm thinking particularly about the, you know, genocide in Gaza, for example, which has been in the headlines, obviously. But in terms of if we wanted to say, well, we don't want to invest in armaments or weapons of war in controversial territories. So can we set a mandate, if we wished, as a pension subcommittee, that both maintained our fiduciary duty to generate a return, but also said, yes, but there's plenty of products out there that we could ask our fund managers to devise to say, can we use this index so we don't invest in, you know, controversial armaments, for example, and that would then allow us to sort of set that ethical standard. And I'm sure a lot of local authorities are looking at this type of thing just now, just because of the focus on this. So does this give us that opportunity, and is that what the resulting survey will allow members to complete, so a report can be brought back? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. So I'll bring in Ian Campbell.
I suppose in terms of whether we could do that to take those sorts of things into account in the investments, there's two sides to it. One is the practicalities of it, which is, could we invest? So we couldn't go and change the current funds that we invest in, couldn't tell the manager to manage them differently, but we could choose to move into different funds. So you'll remember a few years ago we moved out of standard passive equity funds managed by Legal & General into the Future World versions of those funds, which had ESG tilts on and exclusions like controversial weapons, because that aligned to our responsible investment beliefs. So what you could do is move into other funds if you wanted more exclusions, or whatever it may be. I don't know if anyone currently produces funds excluding those particular companies that would be linked to that specific issue, but you could work directly with a manager to do it. It would come with, you know, costs and whatever else associated with that. In terms of from a regulatory perspective as well, so there was guidance issued a good few years ago now regarding taking what's called non-financial considerations into account in your investment decision making. So this was really brought about when kind of ESG and climate change first was being taken into account by LGPS funds in their investments. And essentially what it said was, if you want to take non-financial considerations into account, whether that's, you know, moral and ethical beliefs, it has to pass two tests. So one is that it is not expected to have significant financial detriment on the fund. So essentially you aren't deliberately giving up a lot of return or taking additional risk for the same return by making that decision, because ultimately that would then be funded by higher contribution rates from employers. And two, as temporary, just absolutely left my head, that you expect the members of the pension fund would agree with that decision. So I guess the list of the companies I've seen that should be excluded based on the kind of Palestinian territory issue, is pretty big. It's quite a large share of the market cap. You would excluding a lot of investment opportunities, so there might be challenges there on whether you could say that shouldn't cause financial detriment to the fund. And two, yeah, then it's how do you get the right view of the members of whether they would agree with that decision. You're absolutely correct, Councillor Thompson, that a lot of LGPS funds are having this discussion right now and coming under pressure. Some have decided they were going to survey their members, but efforts in the past on this have been pretty difficult, low response rates, and typically the majority of the responders are those who feel strongest about specific issues, so it isn't necessarily a representative example of the membership. But some have started to do that. Haven't seen the results of that yet. But I guess ultimately, if you were to take that view that you wanted to, and you were to take that view that it passed those two tests, then you would then have to work with an investment manager to develop a solution to implement that.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, do you want to come back in? I've got Councillor Dorwood after that.
Yeah, no, and thanks for letting me back in. And no, I appreciate, so thanks for that response. I think it's really just, it's very difficult as a person to reconcile some of these issues, because clearly we don't want to be in any way supporting killing innocent people. And I know it's many steps removed from sitting in the chambers today or whatever, but at the end of the day, we're trying to sort of justify this in our own way in terms of fiduciary duty, which is completely appropriate for a pension subcommittee. So, but if there is a way that we can, I suppose that one of the other elements of this is about that investment transparency. I think some local authorities, pension funds have taken to saying, well, members of the public can see the types of things we invest in, and I know I don't know how close we are to that, or if it's something we could be better at least to an appropriate level. But if there are products there that allow us to invest more ethically, I would be concerned about picking specific conflicts at any given time. I'd prefer that we had some kind of criteria that says we won't invest in controversial things, rather than picking the current awful events that are happening in any one place, because then it's like, well, what about the next one and the next one and the next one? So it's probably better to have criteria and principles, so that we can then have a more intelligent and sort of defensible way of investing in the right things. But I'll let other members come in. It's been really troubling me lately, so I'm glad that we're getting this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just before I bring Councillor Dorwood in, Karen, do you want to come in?
No, thank you, Chair. And just to follow up on what Ian said, and obviously in the report that's before you today, we make reference to a questionnaire being issued to gauge the opinion of the committee and board around responsible investment. And Ross and I had a conversation last week, and what we're actually thinking, obviously there's a lot of profile on this issue at the minute, was if it would be helpful, obviously as part of the training plan later on in the agenda, we've got our responsible investment sort of refresher as an action in the training plan, was whether before we issue the questionnaire, whether it would be worth arranging that session, getting a sort of overview of responsible investment and the different strands of that, but also to bring in a sort of cross-section of our current fund managers, maybe in particular Legal and General, that have got a lot of the equity investments, as to how they deal with responsible investment, what our current sort of future world tilted versions, what, like just a refresher on what they exclude, and then that's getting everyone in the right mind frame to complete that questionnaire. And then just to kind of take you on the journey following that questionnaire, we would then be obviously updating our responsible investment belief statement, and then that statement would underpin our investment strategy review that we'll take forward with Ian next year as part of the evaluation process. So that's the kind of direction of travel. So I'm more than happy to get that session, that training session set up before the questionnaire is issued. If I'm getting a few nods around the room, thinks that might be a good idea.
Yeah, thanks very much. I've got Councillor Dorwood and then Councillor Beretti and then David Stainthorpe. So, Councillor Dorwood.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Karen, for that. I think this certainly merits further discussion when referring to responsible investment beliefs update 4.7 to 4.10. And I agree with what Councillor Thompson's saying. You know, what's happening in Gaza is horrendous. It is genocide. What's happening in Sudan? What's happening in Yemen? What's happening in Ukraine? What prompts these things? I'm not saying it's not right to look at it. It's certainly right to look at that. And I think the advice you're doing about a training session would be useful. Also, perhaps some further information in terms of legalities behind this and various Supreme Court decisions in terms of what pension funds can do. I think there was one a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think the UK Supreme Court made a decision in terms of what pension funds can and can't do. And I think it's very useful to have that information as well. And also a note that I was doing a bit of reading about this, very, very basic reading, but the university superannuation scheme did some disinvestment, but they said it was specifically on financial best interest grounds. So again, it would be useful to have all that information to hand for us, and probably an easy read version as well would be useful. But it's to give us a perspective, because yes, there has been lobbying by concerned individuals, specifically on the Gaza question, and there's no question that that's horrendous what's happening there. But I think we need to remember, and Councillor Thompson mentioned this as well, fiduciary duty to pensioners. That's really important as one of our key roles as a subcommittee. So whilst we want ethical investing, and we're on that road anyway, I think we're doing that, we're going down that road as well. I think we need to have all relevant information there. Not just maybe a seminar, but all relevant information. Maybe some background reading, that's just for me. My suggestion, I don't know if everybody else agrees with that, would be really useful, so we can do some background reading before we actually have the seminar as well. It's a massive issue. I think we need to be as well informed as possible. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Barretti and then David Stainthorpe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just referring back to what Karen said about the training session, would you be intending to do this online, or would you be intending to do this in person? Because I would feel more comfortable to do something in person and therefore have that documentation in front of me where you can actually talk through some of the issues.
Thank you. How will we get the training going, Ross? I'm looking at you. You're our training guy.
Thank you, Chair. I presume it would be similar to how the committee is run today, but we would need to speak to our governance colleagues. It would be them who would arrange it. But I would imagine we could do a hybrid approach so that some people could be online, some people could be in the room.
Yeah, I suppose it's a personal preference. David Stainthorpe.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say that pension board members have been contacted as well by individuals who live locally about this issue. It is a difficult issue for us because the model that we use, as the pension funds managers told us, doesn't easily allow us to divest from things. And if we have a questionnaire which we decide by consensus does want to look at that, then it's going to be very difficult to do that using the current model that we've got. Other Scottish local government pension fund schemes do have models where they can invest, meeting all the fiduciary arrangements and not invest in these types of operations. So it is possible to do this, but it would mean a change to the model that we use. Now, that might encourage us to have to look more closely at how we manage the investments that we've got, but I think that might well be a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, how do we change those investments? It's probably one of the big questions, I suppose. We don't have the answer at this moment in time, and no, I'm getting shakes from Ian. So I've got Councillor Thompson. You wish to come back in again?
Yeah, no, and thanks for letting me do so, Chair. But I'm sort of, I think, I get the sense that we're, keen to move this forward. And as Councillor Dorward says, we need that range of information so we know, I suppose the full extent of what's both possible and appropriate, so that we're fully informed. And I do get the sense that as pension sub-members, we're more familiar with the different burdens placed upon us in terms of acting responsibly. I can see sort of maybe other councillors that maybe don't have experience of this, maybe want to rush to sort of have a notice of motion so that the council believes X, Y and Z about disinvest here and there, but I don't know how competent that would be for a council to take a position and then a pension subcommittee having a different set of rules sort of governing how it should operate. So maybe that could be teased out as well, because I can see how the council may believe one thing, but the pension subcommittee has to operate according to slightly different rules. So there is that tension there. But yeah, certainly welcome an information session, hybrid or otherwise, with the relevant information. And could I suggest, I know Legal in General seem to be one of the companies that have come under specific attention, if that's so. Maybe if they and another could be helped to present that as well, because it maybe be a bit more balanced, just given the situation. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm getting nods in the room from officers, so yeah, try and accommodate that. David Stainthorpe.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say, I mean, we've been to lots of training over the years, and this topic comes up quite regularly in terms of, what should you or shouldn't you invest in terms of ESG. And the consensus that the professional trainers or people who are giving these lectures to us always seems to be that it's better to be in the room than to be out of the room. Because if you're in the room, you can influence the companies and what they do. And I must admit, that's always seemed like a really sensible position as far as my thoughts go. Yeah, it's a great thing just to say divest from everything that we don't like. But generally what happens then is that investors who don't have our sensibilities get involved in those same companies and cause even more problems than there are currently.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting nods from Ian Campbell from Hymans Robertson. So with that, I don't see anyone else wishing to come in. So we're happy to move to recommendations, which was to note the investment update as detailed in paragraphs 4.1 to 4.10 and 2.2, the quarter 1 2025-26 budget monitoring position detailed in the appendix to this report and summarised at paragraphs 4.11 to 4.14. Happy to do so? Yeah. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 7. This is the Pension Regulator General Code of Practice Action Plan. Members were presented with the results of the self-assessment of the fund in complying with the Pension Regulator Code of Practice at the June meeting of this subcommittee. This report is a follow-up which includes 18 actions, many of which are already in progress to ensure that the fund is more compliant when self-assessment is carried out again in 2 years' time. So we've got Ross Fraser and Isla Herrick are here to answer questions members may have. So Ross, over to you.
I've not got anything further to add to the report, so just happy to take any questions or comments. Okay,
I'll open it up to the floor. I've got Councillor Peretti.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The table on page 198 at 4.2, where it's got fully met and partially met, and there's a variety of percentages on the fully met and a similar variety of percentages on the partially met. It's a little bit confusing, but I can understand when it says 100% fully met and then partially met 0. That's easy enough. But say, for instance, when it comes to IT and cybersecurity, where it says fully met 50% and partially met 50%, well, cybersecurity, you're either covered or you're not. What do things like this? How do you actually tease out what's the reality in all of that?
Thank you, Councillor Peretti. Ross.
Thank you. This table's actually in relation to the report that was brought to members to the last committee with the results, and it tabled, as members will remember, there was various questions that needed to be answered within those specific headings. So in relation to the IT cybersecurity, in relation to 50% of the requirements, we had fully met those requirements, but there's some work needed to be done, which is where the partially met 50% comes under. So even though, as you can see, for the funding and investments, we're 100% compliant with all the criteria under that heading, the IT cyber security, there's some where we're fully compliant and some where we're not.
Thank you, Ross. Councillor Barretti, you want to come back in? Because I've got David Stainthorpe after you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not this kind of table might be brought to that training session so that we can actually understand a little bit more about that. So going through it, because I nearly got all of it, Ross, but I would like a little bit greater in-depth understanding. Ross?
Certainly, yes, but if need be, Councillor, I can go through the previous report because the table was fully laid out as in the appendix of that report at the last committee.
Okay, David Stainthorpe.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. It was just in the cyber security question. Obviously, the evidence is all around the council's cyber security, and yet the audit report said that the fund should develop its own. Now, the actions say March 26 to develop that. I've been involved in my own service in looking at changing IT systems to improve them, and it takes an awful long time because of the council's processes and policies. And I'm wondering if that is a realistic target to achieve March 26 to get our own cyber security policies and actual systems in place.
Is it realistic, Ross?
The timeline that we've put down in March 26 is to get the overarching policy in place. Once we've got that policy in place, then work can be taken to follow that policy. So the timeline there is to get the overarching policy in place that we can then work to follow.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. And is there any thought in the officers' minds as to the timeline for that reaching completion?
It's a multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? Yeah, Ross.
Again, that will be dependent on the resources. We've got the resources in place now, but it will be. We will work. The investment team and the admin team will work together to, as well as including the IT officers from the council, to get that in place, and we will work to get that in place as quick as we can.
Thank you. So as quick as we possibly can. Thank you. I don't see anyone else wishing to come in. Go to recommendations. So members were asked to approve the action plan in the appendix for the improvement to ensure there is full compliance with the code when it is reassessed in 2 years' time. Happy to do so? Yep. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 8. This is the annual training plan. This is a standing item on the agenda and updates the 2025-26 training plan. Members are asked to confirm their attendance at the LGC Investment Seminar in Edinburgh so that bookings can be advanced. Ross Fraser is here to answer any questions members may have. So anything to add, Ross? Nothing to add, so I'll open it up to the floor. Don't see anyone wishing to come in, so move to the recommendations, which the members are asked to note the record of training 2025-26 as in the appendix, and 2.2, the further updates to the record of training and training plan for 25-26 will be brought to future meetings of this subcommittee. So, happy with that? Move on to agenda item 9, which is any other business. I don't have any other business at this moment in time, but we do have some exempt items. Excuse me. Agenda item 10, which is the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, to consider adoption of resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A brackets 4 and paragraph 6 part 1 of schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Are we happy to exclude? Agree on that? Yep, nods in the room. Thank you very much.